Yeah, wait, is this?
Yeah, I fixed it.
Okay.
Is everyone ready?
Framework moral disagreement means epistemic reliability must be the shining point for ethics and about 13. Widespread error, which is about probability based beliefs, or two people from beliefs are read from error. We should retain all these beliefs about that we have reason to believe for reform through reliable policies and very acceptable conclusions. That means util phenomenal introspections most epistemically reliable sin about 13. If I consider my experience of lemon yellow rest would be like if others have the same experience as one thing, but I think they're having bad experiences similarly, and a pleasant but between having good experience, if they have the same experience, their experience will have the same insurance properties as util. Thus, this is maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. Additionally, one moral substitutability is terminally consequential. So explains that Senator Upshur 92. If there's more reason to accept everything A cannot do accept that doing Y will enable A to research more reasons your Y to culture small multiplicity. He continues, what gives me a reason to start them with the consequences of the aggressor. He continues, non-consequential claim. If I promise them with aggressors reason to aggressor would not follow your reason to start them with reasons are promised to more. 2. After specificity, A, governments must aggregate since every policy benefits on as hard as others, which also means I can chase freeze action. B, states lack goals or intentions and policies or collective action. C, no active mission distinction. Governments are responsible for everything the public hears, so inaction is implicit authorization. Actor specificity comes first since different agents have different ethical standings. He said util calculated since that repeatedly denied the link turns out because the all would be no action. 3rd, metaphysics. A, language cannot describe reality, which means operating in all spells counter to 7. Rational thought is inseparable from language only for separate the same as not the conflict believed is formed by arbitrarily describing these individual differences or understanding the rules based on falsification of experience. Empiricism itself doesn't rely on linguistic interpretation of physical instantiations. This also takes out T. Language is indeterminate, so I mean B. We have no unified consciousness. Power fit 84. Searches of fiber T factors Q. Separate spheres of consciousness. Psychologists can judge read questions and 2 have the visual feeling can receive 2 different answers. Util solves it relies only on state of affairs, not unified actions of the separateness of agents. 5. These must be applicable in every instance. Otherwise, they're incomplete and can't get action. Only util guides at every distinction, like whether to order pizza or a salad. 6. Life precludes we can't be consistent with any other moral principle if we're dead. So there's extinction. If there's any uncertainty, we need to be alive to determine the proper source of value. Role of the ballot. The role of the ballot is to vote for the best policy option, key to political activism. Comfort 5. Democracy means citizens by the obligation to obey what the government should do after discussing the motivation, political options, and laws. There is an unconnected power, cooperative power, role playing, but limit the left of power circulation more empowering than abandoning personal power, role playing. Jesus is linked to the power of the people, way for political activism, strategy for change, with governmental power, but the limited voice. I have full scale governmental action. Inherency. Anti-pesticide research is unrestricted. Agrochem companies are behind it. Code 15. Faculty at Hawaii asked the university to policy restrictions of academic freedom imposed by Prof. Valenzuela College accepting money from agro companies research, which I found by the college, which calls it climate of bigotry, retaliation, hostility, for failure to align me. Request that all these restrictions are fully restrained. The first restriction was the closure of a series of research projects in organic farming. The denial of academic freedom continues. More evidence. Anti-pesticide research was restricted. Coperstein and Murphy 15. Farmers apply heavy doses of chemicals. Valenzuela began a long-term research project to grow crops without synthetic pesticides. The dean shut down the research project. The college preventing from employing the future of ag. Pesticide companies pressure universities to restrict studies. Confidentiality rumors kill academic freedom. Hacking 16. Pesticide giants Syngenta glutathion practices used by Monsanto to cause the industry university research time in court. Corporate support university secretaries autonomy by signing confidentiality agreements. Academic double as paid consultants. Agro companies shapes scientific thought. I was pressured enormously by universities to take that money. Plan. Public colleges and universities in the United States are not restricting any constitutionally protected speech on pesticide research. Now the advantage. Pesticides called bees, which cause extinction. Whaler 13. The prominent causes appear to be pesticides reserved to reverse the world bees decline. We need to fix our ag system. Honeybees perform 80% of all pollination. The bee collapse is prone to human enterprise on the scale of global warming, ocean acidification, nuclear war. Humans haven't survived total bee collapse. Pesticide create the nightmare formula for the bee colony collapse. A great reckoning awaits humanity if we fail to awaken Earth. Delicately balanced systems can reach tipping points and collapse. Bead work with a limited danger of marginal returns. The plan spills over to policy BF 515. Today, mission of the university is to transmit advanced knowledge, discover new knowledge, and functioning repository. Public university research is accountable to taxpayers. Research have unique moral policy, a chance to enter the political arena and shape conversation. Roadblocks and ideological impasses are reduced when an academic brings objective research. Research is a vital resource to help policymakers. Good research is essential in food ag systems. Environmental ethics is a D rule. Brennan 13. Taking wider identification seriously means that humans should care for the extended ecological self because each person is more than just his or her body. Excluded self-concern obliges human to connect with and care about other people, but also the existence of beings on which the human existence depends. Every animal has a right to live. Brennan 13. The equal right to live and blossom is the intuitively clear and obvious value axiom. Restriction of human is an anthropocentrism that detrimental effects upon life of humans themselves. The attempt to grow dependence and establish a master-slave role has contributed to the alienation. Under view 1. Interpretation, evaluate all negative frameworks, rules of balance, and other framing through an ethically modest lens. Neg framing is just a weighing argument that doesn't wholly include aff offense, even if the framework is one, but evaluate aff framing through an ethically competent lens. If I win my framework only offense linked into what matters. 1. Solves neg uplayering. The neg's ability to uplayer with a new framework rule of valid and preclusive weighing is the source of the time skew because it calls 6 minutes of the AC constructive round and 1 year too short to generate a time advantage even if it gave my app. The only way to equalize it is ensure my offense matters. 2. Solves kicking the app even if the kicking the app is strategic in some instances. It's uneducational because we lose 6 minutes of the death. A shorter debate is a little more likely to be resolved on some drop than on a substantive exploration of the topic. Also increases judge intervention since late-breaking debates require the judge to draw a line on new and the two arguments of late weighing and meta weighing. 3. Doesn't overcompensate. Neg has 7 minutes to establish its own framing and turn the case. Also, it's in-round predictable since you haven't ran any offense yet, and this is the one you see. Under view 2, neg gets advantage counterpoints at testing intrinsicness of app offense. If the app gets intrinsicness, perms at testing intrinsicness of neg offense. That's key to reps of flashing. Mankins 84 summarizes an argument. The rest should represent a necessary insufficient causal factor from which advantages or prudent disadvantages result. Just as the app must gain advantage from necessary insufficient action on the red side, too must the negative disadvantages stem from similar conditions under view 3. 1. If I win a counter-interpretation at tier 3 about app time press rebuttals means the app needs the ability to collapse a theory and over to overcome inequity of speech times. Otherwise, the 2 and I would also move a large portion of 1 year by kicking theory prefer time to other links to fairness because it's quantifiable and verifiable. 2. Semantics-based arguments are racist. Niami 15. Correctness is racist, and correctness is one kind of a person having access to the truth and the other lacking it. Any debate that runs Nebel team must acknowledge the theory and present the perception in which there is a metric of what it means to be competent English speaker. The competent English speaker is the fundamental goal and top level value that Mr. Nebel appeals to. 3. If they win a T, drop the plan and reevaluate offense under their interp. T is not reciprocal, only the half has the burden of meaning it, so it shouldn't be a game over issue for me. 4. Interpretation, the neg can't challenge my ability to rectify to specify speech on pesticidal research. A. Education, we need to talk about B's whole rest doesn't solve pigs crowd after discussion and transition into stock debate on case B. Ground 1. Alpha shift back ensures I can't delete from offense. If I don't expect the 1 year can say normal means it's just speech codes or something. 2. Specificity gives means that you could tell your offense specific to the plan. Otherwise, I'll just say your free speech indicts are too sweeping.
This offensive flank is justified.
Yeah, or the C point.
Yeah, below that, right? Alright, so we're good?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the plan. You don't restrict any constitutionally protected speech on pesticide research. What does that entail?
Well, so right now, pesticide research is just being like egregiously shut down by colleges. They're just like, no, you can't do this research anymore. And obviously, research is not something that is not protected by the Constitution.
So it's the research that is being shut down in the status quo? Mm-hmm. How is research the same thing as speech about pesticide research?
Wait, so no, it's not speech about pesticide research. Obviously, the 1 year can make, if you say that research isn't speech, that seems a little weird because research is like literally written documents that people write themselves. Wait, okay, there are a million apps on journalism and things that aren't verbal.
Right, I'm not making a
I think it's silly to say that you have to verbally speak things and probably
how does speech on pesticide research, how is that the same thing as unrestricting research on pesticide? Seems like the plan doesn't solve the advantages.
You just said you're not asking about T, but like the question is whether or not research, like ending restrictions on.
Does it solve the advantages? How does unrestricting on research
I see the issue. You do not understand the advantages. The advantages are about why pesticide research is good. It's not about why speech about why we need the research is good. It's just
so it's about why research is good. All of the advantages are about why research is good.
Yeah, the one advantage is about.
All right. So then, what does unrestricting constitutionally protected speech about research do?
Wait, no, that is not the
plan is ought not restrict any constitutionally protected speech on pesticide research. So talking about research, how does that resolve the fact that research is currently being restricted in the status quo by colleges? That doesn't seem to get rid of any of those policies.
I don't know. That seems like a very strange interpretation of the plan. The plan would allow people to freely talk and criticize pesticides.
Okay.
That's probably also good if people are
able
to like talk about why research
let's talk about the BFI evidence. You say the plan spills over to policy. Read to me a line from this card that is specific to allowing constitutionally protected speech about pesticide research.
Okay, so the I don't think that it needs to be that hyper-specific. This evidence is just about how these sorts of university policies have historically informed policies and changed.
All right, which university policies?
It doesn't say any specific policies. Actually, it does talk about the J. Lund Center for
what policies exist in the status quo that restrict these research?
It makes a much more broad claim. It's not hyper-specific about individual things that have like led to.
Okay, let's talk about the Karen 15 evidence and the Christian Murphy evidence. Read to me a line from this card that's specific to constitutionally protected speech being restricted, because it seems to talk about professors' actual research, like them being able to write things or like do scientific research about things, is restricted in the status quo.
Yeah, well, again, that is just a question of whether those things are constitutionally protected.
Yeah, read to me a line from this card that says that it's constitutionally protected.
You can make that argument in the 1AR, but I don't think you're going to find a part of the Constitution that says that you can do research.
I don't think you're going to find a part of the Constitution that agrees that like scientific people doing experiments is constitutionally protected speech. That's different. Okay, so the Koberstein card, what policies is this author talking about that restricted their free speech?
The Koberstein?
Or ability to
Well, I
research.
mean, it was just like literally the college went to them individually and was like, you cannot research this anymore.
Okay, how does that change in the world of the app?
You can't do that.
So, no, they say that you can't talk, like, they can't do it. So the college in the world of the app says that they can't stop you from talking about your research, but how does that stop the colleges from having these policies that prevent you from doing that research?
Well, okay, so there were a few things. First of all, people are writing about this research, right? Like, there's one thing to perform the research, and there's another thing to, like, write about all of the research that's been done and make arguments for why the pesticide companies need to
Exactly,
stop
so
doing
performing research and actually talking about it are two different things.
Well, okay, so even if that's true, though, I think that the app still solves the entirety of the Spanish.
Oh, okay.
There's no more. Matt, I'm looking at your laptop.
Too off in the case.
You live
Counterplan decided. Actually, I'm just going to start on the underview and then it'll be.
Are you dealing with the framework? So go down. Are you dealing with the framework?
1 second. My internet's not working very well right now. Yeah, sure.
You said 2 off.
Long case it starts on the underview.
Starts where?
On the underview.
Okay. The first one? Or which one? Oh, you said.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Alright, it's called 1 and C. Might help if you organize by like date last modified because there's a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Everyone good? Is that good?
Yeah.
Everyone has it? Alright. First off is the shock and awe counterplan text. The United States Congress should pass a law holding that if the court of final jurisdiction finds that a public university or college has violated the constitutionally protected speech rights of any person in regards to pesticide research, then the university or college will pay liquidated damages to the plaintiff in the amount of no less than $5 million and forfeit 25% of its federal funding that current fiscal year. If a university or college is a repeat offender at any point in the 5 years following, it will forfeit 100% of its federal funding in that fiscal year. It solves the act by incentivizing public colleges not to enforce their speech restrictions and spills over to private universities. French 424. If we can't count on colleges to protect free speech, it's time for Congress by just incentives to make it costlier to cost holding the court if it finds public university has violated constitutional rights. The university will pay liquidated damages to plaintiff no less than $5 million. Will forfeit 25% of its federal funding in that year. If the university is a repeat offender in 5 years following, it will forfeit 100%. Universities will respond with all the energy and fury of prisoners and electric shock. The rule of law will be restored. Our essential liberties will be protected anew. Private universities will maintain totalitarian enclaves and will face powerful market pressures for more free public universities, and contrast between liberty and oppression will be made clear for all to see. It's competitive. The counterplan is congressional action that keeps current speech restrictions in place but forces public universities not to enforce them via financial consequences. Also, normal means of the office college administrators. The act builds on historical and current college administrative measures to protect free speech. Use Chicago academic freedom law proves a trend of ready enforcement and publicized model mechanism for other universities. Maury 16. Administrators Columbia University, Brown University made public statements to protect free expression on campus. The catalyst for recent restraint seems to be academic freedom law should Chicago sent to incoming students advising them not to protect safe spaces. The letter was widely spread around a deep debate over campus speech protections, also to resonate with other colleges administrators. Use Chicago's letter built on our efforts to protect faculty degrees that have more than dozens of either administration or faculty. No Chicago statements by the trend. We hope schools continue protecting speech even when it isn't popular. The counterplan solves the entirety of the act, filters solvency through incentives and specific evidence. The anti-French evidence indicates that without financial incentives, university officials are unlikely to change their behavior in enforcing free speech protections, which means the act has zero solvency. Only the counterplan has risk of solvency. None of their evidence in response rises to the level of specificity that the counterplan does. French indicates that a $5 million fine with a cut of 25% in federal funding, and if they repeat that in the next 5 years, 100% cut in federal funding would create massive financial consequences to enforcing restrictions on constitutionally protected speech. Also, the benefit is that we solve a majority of the act and spills over because it also spills over to private universities, which are key to research because they typically have even more funding, which means we force them to also not have crackdowns on speech, which means we solve more of the act's advantages. Also, next off is the endowments decide. First, empirics prove endowments are high now and increasing. Alumni recognize the value of college research and donate for that cause. Lawrence 16. U.S. universities raised a record of $40 billion. Increasingly, people are looking at research university to help resolve problems facing humankind. Northwestern gifts included $100 billion for Institute of Biotech. Never see the impact gifts make, but on the world. Gifts from the alumni increased 10% and donations will 23%. Lack of administrative response to overt bigotry anger students and alumni who decreased donations. Woodhouse 15. Student red actually encouraging alumni not to give into school because it was not addressing instances of racism on campus. Black faculty reports were defaced and the administrative response was weak. Alumni use the power of force to bring change to the school. Black alumni child status our hope. The university will address this incident appropriately. College leaders will have greater pressure to be pursued because this has a specific link to the 1AC office. This is talking about how alumni are incentivizing and asking people to use Congress's power of the purse rather than the school because the school is being ineffective in enforcing restrictions, which means the counterplan solves the act better. And protests empirically alienate donors who disagree with left-wing tactics, specifically how administrators handle issues of free speech is key. Woodhouse 15. Alumni response to protests full of colleges had intentions from alumni who sees philanthropic support, asked to go to the race to apologize and negatively impact the university's fundraising. Would this impact future contributions? Depends on how the administrators handles it. And in clear reviews, the current protesters' advancing tactics create sense the responsibility to create impression of alumni being ridiculous left wing. And alumni hate and protest disruptions in social justice wars, laundry lists of impact and historical backlash groups. Section 16, social justice wars making announcements on the campus impact of alumni. Older successful alumni pull back on donations because they're so turned off when they see what is happening on former campuses. Backlash from alumni after shocking campus instructions. College reported not donations accompanied by laundry list complaints. Alumni raffle by today's college culture wrapped in racial and identity politics. As long as I've been linked to and dismissed as an old by Pickett, instead of the current feelings of the color community, he's warned of reducing support to $5. Story contains several complaints by alumni when they don't support what is happening on campus these days. And endowment funds ensure innovative research and diverse recruitment turns the AF, Lay 14, confer research support and endowment recruits for the nation's best institutions funded by tuition. Let's make sure that expenditures directly benefit students with limit opposition for innovation, risk taking, pragmatic funding enables students to take risks in research, support for artists, allows faculty to develop new areas of knowledge by broadening the capacity of institutions to innovate, use competitive solutions to endowments. And the U.S. rate of innovation, tech development, and R&D must keep pace to develop tech solutions and solve collapse of the global biosphere, war, and poverty. Turns case means we co-opt their extinction impact and the counterplan outweighs. Barker 2K. With global population approaching at 10 billion, we look in current tech, we would find an environmental disaster. Attack continues to expand material resources, helping us to change the sustainable advantage of these acceleration product of the tech biotechnology will be used in course of productivity is imperative to provide environmental sustainability, architecture, solve the three priorities, particularly instead of human limits, sustainability, will potential to backfire, but like the limits required innovation, surpassing commitment, war, disease, famine, poverty, resource protection, and environmental degradation. Technology can resolve these issues, tech prevent irreversible damage to biosphere and the loss of natural resources. Mark the card of resources. I didn't read the last 2 lines of that. The dissent turns case in outweighs because first it indicates that alumni have a perception of how we need to protect research or how we need to prevent protests against these research in the status quo. A lot of the alumni are very, very right-wing, which means they don't believe in things like global warming in the first place, which means the one of these research will be uniquely controversial, which still links to all of our offense that's talking about protests, which means the dissent turns case because it'll lead to backlash, and also they take away funding from things like research, which means the one see also has no solvency. Now in case on the underview. First, on the advantage counterplan thing, I think this is underview too. First, no reason as to why you should get intrinsic perms on this specific counterplan because it has a very specific solvency advocate to which checks back all your offense. It takes up an argument evidence because you don't need to have intrinsic perms to check something that's already so qualified in the solvency literature in the first place, which means you have enough ground on this and you should have been obligated to prep for this at a time. And also, if you get specified to a plan text in the first place, that's the reason as why you shouldn't get intrinsic permutation in the first place because you already chose your ground. You shouldn't get to shift your ground to the 1AR, which co-opts all the neg offense in the first place, which means no reason as to why this argument is irrelevant in this specific context because it gets rid of the entirety of neg ground. Also, on the next underview, I didn't read theory in this first place, which means all the RBIs, offense, and timescale offense also applies if they read 1AR theory. Check him back for all of his semantics races and how we should reevaluate the plan offense because he should be held to the same standards that I am. I didn't read theory, so it's your move now. Now, in case, as an overview on the plan. First, free speech consists of pure and symbolic speech. Kaiser's 15. Free speech can be further classified by distinction between pure speech and symbolic speech. Pure speech is direct in the expression of ideas such as shouting or verbalizing, while symbolic speech involves nonverbal content in place, such as signs. This takes out the entirety of case solvency because all this solvency is contingent on the ability for these professors to do research in the first place. Their adherency evidence indicates that their current policies that exist that prevent them from doing that scientific research in the first place, which means constitutionally protected speech doesn't resolve any of their impacts because it's just their ability to talk about their research. The plan text does not solve the advantages in any way, shape, or form, which means a double bind. Either A, you vote neg on presumption because the plan text does nothing because it's the research policies that still exist in Level 1C that will prevent them from having solvency, or B, the counterplan solves on the offense and outweighs because the endowment says that. And turn, academic freedom is inaccessible to dissenting viewpoints. Social free speech do not protect supposed threats to academic life. Teach Nova 14. Scholar to play this one across the line. My speech demanded condemnation because of academic freedom is exception. Obligation seem out of line with the academic life. Preferably free speech as a expression. My communication community was progressing this less free speech than a violation of norm and advantages of the university proves that their 1C solvency academics does not work and you should prefer counterplan solvency because allowing professors to have academic freedom as per what the 1C evidence indicates will not work because they're just seen as essentials and they're shut down even more, which means further reason why the plan doesn't solve the advantages and also the reason why we link to them because they lead to increased censorship because we think we've resolved the problem but actually results in masking, which means we have further justification to increase censorship on more professors. And also, removing restrictions prevents censorship and creates a chilling effect on reform. Censorship and endless procedural debates that prevent the status quo. Ingram 84. Clear present test allows official prohibited expression when speech to let instant action. First Amendment prevents state to cut off expressive students of being in fact speakers. Receive no warning. The tests give little guidance, lack of knowledge. Children speaker only marketplace separate good from the only criterion is radical receive no protection because they appear as a threat. Marketplace encourages prolonged discretion and delay of actions. Mark the credit actions. This also turns case because it indicates that dissenters and people that believe in climate change in the world of very right-wing academic colleges are just seen and they're shut down in the world. Yeah. So I didn't read.
Can you send a March version before we start?
Did I mark the impacts of dissent? Did I mark that at resources or technology?
What?
Did I mark that at resources or technology?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll just mark it earlier then. Alright, it's...
Oh wait, could you flash it? Okay, ready? Status of the counterplan?
I'm commissioner.
Okay, that's interesting. So, if funding for colleges is key to innovation, which solves war, then why isn't it bad for colleges to have to pay money when they do something bad? Like,
Isn't it bad?
Yeah, why isn't it bad? Don't we want colleges to have as much money as possible as per the indemnity said?
I mean, sure, but our evidence indicates that the only thing that motivates colleges is monetary incentive. So, i.e., the app can only happen
why
and
doesn't
have
fiat
any risk of
motivate
solvency.
colleges?
If,
Like the
not
plan is
fiat,
literally just that they
taking
do
away
this.
money.
Wait, why doesn't fiat solve? Like fiat is literally like force.
Fiat doesn't solve. Fiat doesn't take money away from colleges. It just says
No. I'm not asking about
restrictions.
I'm not asking why fiat is the equivalent to the counterplan. I'm asking. Your argument seems to be that in the
fiat
world of
means let it
can I
be
finish
done.
my
In the world of
question?
the app,
Can I
the only
finish my
thing that
question?
happens is restrictions go away.
Yeah, exactly. So what is your why doesn't that solve? Your argument seems to be
Because
that
the
colleges don't
perception of
actually
people
have
having
restrictions.
restrictions
So
in the
why
first
doesn't
place
fiat
is
do
what
that?
incentivizes alumni to keep donating. So they will stop donating, funding goes away, research goes away. This turns case. Also, the counterplan solves. Because
Okay,
the
wait.
restrictions still say, they just aren't enforced.
Wait. Okay. So why does the counterplan avoid the case turns?
The counterplan avoids the case turns because we don't rely on a solvency mechanism of academic freedom. All of your 1AC solvency evidence and offense is about how professors need academic freedom. Rather than relying on just academic freedom, we rely on what colleges are actually motivated by, which is monetary incentives.
Wait, doesn't the monetary incentives motivate academic freedom?
No.
Why? Wait, then how does it not?
We're talking about
How does
academic
it solve
freedom
the
for
case
professors,
then?
and we're talking about money for colleges. Those are two different
How does it
things.
solve it? Your counterplan is that we sue them when they restrict academic freedom. How does it not double bind? Either it links to the net benefit or it doesn't solve the case.
It doesn't link to the net benefit.
Why?
This argument is that professors alone, i.e. just having them have their academic freedom and attempting to contest dissenting
Okay, do you
viewpoints
have
in the
any
university
evidence
is
that
bad
people
for
have
them.
actually protested
That's
over
de novo.
bees?
Protested over what? Pesticides?
Yes.
No, but the 1AC evidence, inherency evidence indicates that that's an issue in the status quo.
Wait, so everything that is an issue in this quote will cause major right-wing backlash
Oh,
and
also,
destroy funding
your
for
terminal
colleges?
impact to your AC is about how we need to resolve climate change and warming, which a lot of right-wing donors don't believe in the first place.
No,
So
it's
clearly,
not.
if
What-
the app
okay.
causes that, it causes some backlash from alumni
What?
who don't believe in warming.
Okay, why would they know the justification for the app?
I mean, you're doing research for pesticides
Also,
about
where does the
bees.
app
That's
have
clearly
a
to
warming
preserve the
impact?
environment.
Where does the app have a warming impact?
Your argument is that you need to preserve the environment, i.e. agrochem and stuff.
Okay.
Right-wing donors don't really care about the environment as much as they care about other things.
What is the Kaiser 15 evidence?
Okay, the Kaiser 15 evidence argues that free speech solely includes pure and symbolic speech, i.e. either direct expression of idea, like shouting or verbalizing something, or symbolic speech, like non-verbal conduct in displays, like signs or wearing
what is
black
your
armbands.
argument? Is your argument just that research isn't free speech?
No, the argument is that the plan doesn't solve the advantages, because your plan says don't restrict constitutionally protected speech in regards to this research, but all of the advantages indicate that there are policies in the status quo directly against that research and not speech about that research that prevent professors from actually having access to being able to publish this research and funding to happen.
Okay.
So all of your evidence isn't about speech, it's about the research and the actual policies in our research.
7. I think I just have to flash it. Wanting our TOC objects. Two new off, under view, and then the aft contention, and then the counterclaim and the descent.
Where on the underview?
Just the one art, or the third part, the third underview.
The marking stuff?
The
RBIs?
yeah.
You said 2 new off. I apologize. I don't know what else after that.
2 new off, under view, half offense, counterclaim descent.
Okay.
Is everyone ready?
Interpret the next use a counterpoint on this topic. The actor must be public colleges, universities, United States violation. For actors, United States Congress standards. One ground. You get to cherry pick the best possible actor, but I'm stuck and bound by the resolution, which means it's infinitely unfair. Also, justifies you reading the private colleges do the aft counterpoint, which and any reason why you shouldn't do the public colleges, which obviously destroys my ground. It destroys any reason why it would be good to affirm. It also allows you to read a bunch of process counterpoints just like this one, which move my ground. Force 1 year restart. You can see the side by side aft now. Second, education. This never happens. We never no actor ever thinks about whether or not or that decides between 2 different agents doing a particular thing, which means that never happens in the real world now. Fairness is devoted to basic competitive requires objective evaluation. Education is devoted against it's the intrinsic purpose of debate. Drop the debate around 1 year to because drop the arc is too short to allow the 1 year is too short for drop that arc to be sufficient recourse. Use competing interns lead to a race that helps me figure out the best possible moment. Otherwise, judge intervention since there's a group and RBI is also already out for 6 minutes of the 2 and R, which means it's possible to check out these outweighs on magnitude. Skip the second offer now. Go to the underview. You say that you also have to. You say that you also get the same standards. No, everything was app specific. You can see the tie bias, which was justification for IBI, and also drop the argument T. There's no warrant for why I have to hold you to the same standards. No need to win our arguments. Now, the offense. You can see that environmental ethics is a D rule, which means that the B's offense automatically outweighs the endowments said. You conceded that pesticide research is key to, or that speaking about pesticide research is key to be able to solve bee colony collapse, which causes extinction. Now, the line by line for the Kaiser 15 evidence 1, the CP also links because it says speech with regards to pesticides, which is also to test values research, which is the same thing as the app because it's speech about it. Second, I saw by writing about things that are people already have researched them, but the point is that people are writing about those things so that they are actually that you're analyzing the research and actually motivating policy changes in the context of pesticides, which is the internal link to all of the advantages. You say double-blind presumption or whatever, you can vote on presumption because they read a counterpoint, which means that there's no which means that the counterpoint also links, so it doesn't matter. Now, you say that freedom is inaccessible, but it does the fiat solves it. Just literally does make them free. There's no warrant for why we need long-term reform or anything, which is the internal link that all of your cards go for. No, we just literally need this. That is it. After that, we can have sufficient research to avoid bee colony collapse. That also takes out your Inger 84 evidence. We do not need reform. Now, the counter past the app. Now, the counterpoint 1 per do both. There's no reason why it's mutually exclusive. We can have a banning, and also if they violate the ban, then we can also have monetary penalties. 2 perm do the counterpoint people. Right? If it is true that they deter and that they will end up not restricting constitutionally protected speech, and that means that the counterpoint just results in the app. Third, double blind. Either you link to the net benefit because you do the exact same thing, or you don't solve because you don't actually deter people effectively. Fourth, the endowment disset indicates that colleges should have as much money as possible, which is a disset to the counterpoint because we shouldn't use monetary incentives since they would have to lose a lot of money, which is super bad for innovation, which turns you under the disset. 5, colleges might just not care, which means that they might not deter, which is at least a risk of the solvency deficit with the counterpoint. 6, fiat solves a net benefit. You say that colleges won't actually end restrictions, but the fiat that I just literally say that they do, which means that there's no impact. Now, the endowments disset. No reason why there would be protests over these things. You might say that there is some level of disagreement over this, but obviously this isn't a particularly controversial issue, even if it relates to the environment. It also doesn't even relate to warming, which is why you say is the reason why right-wing people would get mad. It is a separate environmental issue. Second, people wouldn't know. This is a small administrative policy. Third, there are plenty of left-wing people in colleges that would be happy about the plan. It also doesn't turn case. There's no reason why we need innovation in the broad sense to be able to resolve the P's impact. Now, non-unique market volatility means colleges endowments are falling lower. 13.7 public university endowments of more than $1 billion reported the fiscal 2016 investment losses, the lackluster economic growth and volatility dropped markets. College endowments are poised to take the worst slide in performance since 2009. The Ohio State and Cal had the largest declines at 3.4%, while Virginia fell to 1.5%. Turn. Neg bans of speech are part of the problem. Michelson 16. Chicago's PC tracking was all about Jonas old. White guys who were ready to college that will. 29% of small liberal arts colleges reported the climate innovation. This letter to your audience with the alumni who can now read it. Look at me. I oppose political corrections, donors care, and no link unique. It's descriptive of this quote. It says that right now alumni thinks there's too much protest, but that wouldn't be restricted anyway. And last year link proves my link term benefactors don't like protests because it's students arguing for safe spaces, no conservative speakers, etc.
You got everything right.
Except for the second intro. Yeah.
1 2 3 Do you want me to? Oh wait, can I have your flash drive?
Wow.
Yeah, that was nice.
That was like stick to the curse. Yeah. Sports not yeah, I can't figure out what's with some harm. Oh, yeah. Done.
I didn't have time to like get up this step, so like
Okay.
it's not a sentence, but
That's
the
okay.
like blanks are there.
Good job, that's important. What's the order?
The order is going to be
Who's still talking to me about that? They don't understand. I'm like, that's a large problem.
the order is going to be theory,
That's, I couldn't have been more clear.
case, design.
On case, are you going for the RBI or not?
I'll make those arguments on here.
So, theory, case, what?
Theory, case, design. Alright, so we're good. Oh, do you need the file too?
No.
Alright. Okay. First, on theory counterinterpretation, the negative may read one unconditional agent counterplan if and only if the affirmative reads a plan. First, agent counterplans are good. One, policy education, key to the details of how the plan is implemented and the best methods of like curtailing the plan and carrying it out. Also, two, cost-benefit analysis, force them to debate the merits of the plan's implementation. It's key to decision-making skills, which co-ops all their education, offense, and link turns. And also, three, coordinate ground, internet to correct the AF topics bias because they get to pick their ground in the first place. Agent counterplans are key to check a litany of small and unpredictable AFs. It takes out their next side bias claims and also link turns their standard argument or fairness argument. Also, four, predictable. It's the AF burden to be able to defend the actor that you use in the first place. Our evidence on the counterplan indicates that normal means of the AF is public colleges and universities, and all of your ground is being referring to the University of Michigan speech codes and the University of Wisconsin speech codes, which were implemented by public universities in the first place, which means you should be prepared to have a defense of that in the first place if you choose your ground in the first place. Just link turns their education standard down the line of their ground standard. First, they say that being able to specify things like private colleges destroys their ground in the first place. First, I didn't specify private ground in the instance of this round, so you should weigh the actual abuse in this round as instead of potential abuse in this round. I specified in Congress, which is a counterplan that people have been reading for months on this topic, which means you have no ground loss in this specific instance. They say side bias goes out, but the topic bias and being able to pick their own ground, the argument that I made on the underview takes out this argument because you get to since you read a plan, you get to pick what ground you defend in the first place, which means you should have a defense of every single word in your plan text in the first place because you get to pick your ground in the first place, which means link turns are standard because you already have a linear ground before the debates even talks. Their last argument is just like a conventionally false. They say that no one thinks about the agents that do the plan in the first place, but it's just factually untrue. Lots of policymakers weigh the impacts of whether or not the courts will do the AF or whether or not Congress does the AF, which is why we have things like the court legitimacy decide or the Congress decides which about this topic in this specific instance, and also the endowments decide in this instance, which means the agent that implements the AF is very, very key to things like enforcement debates in the first place, which link turns all of their education and fairness arguments away because one, it's fair to be able for you to have these debates about your implementation of your AF because it's key to you winning solvency in the first place, which means it's more fair for you if you get to leverage all of your AC offense against the counterplan, which is what you get to do. Also, link turns education because it indicates that you would be able to have a more educational debate about whether or not the implementation of your AF is good in the first place, and it incentivizes things like better plan writing, which increase education because you might be incentivized to change the actor of your AF in the first place if one actor has more solvency than the other, which means we increase AF ground because you can read other actors on this too. Also, now I have to drop the debater. First, they say that 1 year is too short to recover this, but first, drop the argument on this because they moved the entirety of the 1NC offense if I drop the debater on this specific instance, which means dropping the argument is better. Also, they can do things like link turn the net benefit counterplan, which solves all their ground loss and fairness and education loss in the first place, which means they have extra offense on other pages of the flow, which means it's not too short because you can now have multiple layers in which you can go for in the 2 area in the first place, which means dropping the argument is best. Also, no reason as to why you should drop the debater in this specific instance because we read a counterplan in the instance of their specific plan text in the first place, which means if they get to choose their ground, there's no reason as to why they can instead drop the debater issues on the entirety of the counterplan flow. Rather, if you get to choose your ground, we should be able to track the procedural issues like this. Now, with competing interpretations, you should use reasonability with the right line of link turn or impact on your ground. This is empirically proven in this specific instance because they were able to link turn the net benefit to the counterplan, which is the endowments, one of the net benefits to the counterplan, which is the endowments set, which means solves all your offense. They say race to the top, but no, this is just factually untrue because reasonability in this specific instance is justified because we're able to decide whether or not the procedural debates about the 1AC is good or not in this specific context, which means it's not a race to the top, rather it's a question of what the 1AC actually does, which means the implementation debates check this back, which means there's no ground loss or education loss for you specifically on competing interprets. Also, you should use reasonability in this specific instance because it's justified when we're having a debate about substantive engagement, which is the highest voter in this debate, and also reasons why you should prefer the counter-interpretation offense over the AC offense because it's a question of what the plan actually does. That's the only way that we can cause things like rule change. All their arguments about pesticides and how we need to stop bees from dying in the first place go away if we were just allowed to not have things like reasonability in this first place because we lose all of our substantive engagement on this topic, which means that's the highest voting issue in this debate. So the theory breaks down pretty simply. I read one unconditional agent counterplan. You got to pick your ground. I should get to pick the counterplan ground. No reason why you get to restrict my actor. You can change your actor if you want to. Use reasonability and drop the argument. Now on case. First on case, their arguments against the anger card are very bad, so I'm going to extend that as an extra net benefit to the counterplan. All their arguments that don't apply, they say first speaking is key to like stop back extinction, but the counterplan co-opts your extinction argument because it spills over to private universities. That's a conceded argument coming out of the 1AR, which means we solve a majority of your impact much higher, so the counterplan has a higher risk of solvency in that place, but I'll get to that on the counterplan. They also say academic freedom is uniquely, or actually, they say that fiat solves the link to this argument and we don't need long-term reform, but the anger evidence indicates that in a world where you remove restrictions on constitutional productive speech, there's no ability for professors to actually speak out because they always get silenced, which means the 1AC has absolutely no solvency because dissenting professors or people that are seen as having weird opinions are always shut down, which means only the counterplan solves because we leave these restrictions in place, but they're just not enforced in the first place, which means it's a question of how this impact is perceived in the first place. In a world where we remove restrictions, people perceive this as them being able to go out and target professors in the first place, which means their innovation research isn't resolved. Also, now the dissent specifically. First on the dissent, I'll concede the non-unique argument, not going for the dissent is often reason to vote negative. They concede the spillover claim about the private universities, which massively outweighs the impact of their AC, which means I'll concede the argument that endowments are falling right now in the status quo means that the impact of this system never goes away. They can't access their link turn offense on it because you need uniqueness to turn. No reason why they somehow increase the endowments. Now on the counterplan. First, the counterplan off permutation do both. It's severance for a couple of reasons. First, they conceded the actor of the counterplan is completely different because it's the Congress counterplan, and all things conceded are normal means cards. There's reasons why there's no reasons why you can ban unrestricted constitutional practices and have monetary restrictions. The entirety of the counterplan is contingent on leaving restrictions in place in the first place, which means this permutation fails because they get rid of restrictions. It's a question of the perception of how restrictions are perceived. When we have a world of restrictions, people are less incentivized to go up to these colleges. They've also conceded the French evidence, which indicates that the counterplan resolves the F better because public colleges are only motivated by monetary incentives. But this also takes out permutation to the counterplan because you would suffer out of getting rid of restrictions in the world of YC, which means you should reject this. You should reject both permutation because they're severance, which kills all my education in this specific instance because you shift your ground in the 1 AR, which means it's too late for the student to have recourse on this. So reject both the perms on face. You also say double bind other beliefs in that benefit are resolved, but no, I'm only going for the private universities that benefit. That's the conceded Mori 16 evidence, which outweighs because they've conceded the argument in the 1NC that was private universities are uniquely key to research because they typically have more funding than other colleges and they also have more advanced materials, which means in the specific context of scientific research, the net benefit outweighs. Their last argument is that colleges don't care about money in the first place, but the French evidence, which is conceded, says that they care about money, especially if it's $5 million that they're going to use. And they say fiat solves the net benefit, but no, you don't solve the net benefit because you don't fiat that the depends on private colleges. So the round breaks down really easily. You can vote on the counterplan. Theory has dropped the argument. They've conceded that we spill over to private universities, which are uniquely key for things like research. They've also conceded that normal means of the F takes out both of the permutations because the normal means is public colleges, not universities. So this round breaks down really easily. Just vote on the counterplan. Net benefit outweighs.
I had how much time?
57.
It's just Jones. Oh, that's fair. He also knows. Just sent an email.
Okay. Overview, case counterplan, or case dissent counterplan.
Overview.
Okay. Is everyone ready?
Were you at this overview case on this overview?
Yeah.
Okay.
The two winners spent way too much time on theory. You really messed up. You kicked out of a disad wrong, which means that I still have an access to a link turn, and you also and you also went for one argument, which is that it spills over to private colleges, which literally is not in the 1NC. I looked during prep and was also not a warrant that was extended in the 2NR. So stop waving your arms when you did not explain a reason for why it actually spills over and just asserted the tagline. Now the case debate. Now the case debate. You say that it spills over to private colleges, but you have not explained this warrant at all. You say that the professors otherwise get silenced and that it's not enforced. But here's the contextualization of fiat. You seem to assume that fiat, that the plan just says that colleges will say that they are stopped restricting, but the plan text literally makes them stop restricting. It is that they will end restrictions. It's not just that they release a public statement that they say they will stop doing this, but they actually do, which means that there's no net benefit to the counterplan except the one argument that you go for, that it spills over to private colleges, that it spills over to private colleges. Now the dissad debate, this was a huge problem. You do not concede non-uniqueness when I straight link turned the dissad. That is policy debate 101. You said that you conceded you conceded that endowments are falling right now and that the app is key to increase it. That was the link turn evidence that I read on the dissad, which is a reason, it talks about how strong restrictions are key, which is something that the counterplan doesn't do. You also mishandled the argument that the dissad impact is a dissad to the counterplan because as much money as possible is key, and that the counterplan necessarily either doesn't deter colleges from doing anything or it does, and they have to pay money, which is bad for innovation. And if it is true that that is an internal to any sort of important impact, and that is the reason why there is a huge dissad to the counterplan. The question you have to ask yourself is whether it's bad for colleges to lose money and not being be able to innovate, or just whether there is a small chance of a spillover to private universities. Obviously, the conceded arguments and the fact that they get kicked out of the decide wrong means that they are not going to win this debate on the counterplan. Now the counterplan, you also don't do a very good job on the perm. Extend perm, do both. You just say that there is a different actor. Why does this matter? Obviously, you can do both. The two actors can do different things. Your arguments on the counterinterrupt to the three shall probably prove this. Double bind. Either they actually stop restrictions in the world of the app, which means that there's no net benefit to the counterplan, or you can perm it because the permutation means that if they falter at all and don't effectively do this, then they will just have the monetary restrictions that the counterplan imposes. There is also no explanation for why it is unique to the counterplan that it spills over to private universities, which means that you definitely have no net benefit. You can see the 4 point, which is the money argument that I explained. You can see the money argument that I explained above. So it's super simple. There's no net benefit to the counterplan. The app actually fiats that they get rid of restrictions. The only thing you have going for you is the private spillover argument, but it was not explained at all, and there is a huge dissed to the counterplan because you kicked out of the dissed wrong. There's a link differential, and also it conceded, even if you don't buy that they kicked out of the dissed wrong, there is still a dissed to the counterplan because it would likely cause them to lose money in some instances, which is key to innovation. Obviously outweighs the increase, obviously outweighs a few private colleges adopting the app, because you've not explained why that is key. You've basically considered the app offense, that the app is key to being able to allow research on pesticides, which solves extinction because bees are necessary for the environment.
Were there things that were being flashed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, you can click date modify and switch to the first one.
Sorry, what?
You can click date modify and
And it was just the app where that was flashed?
The 2 hours is
Right.
Yeah.
So this thing only has a blue, right?
it has
That's the only thing that you don't have. Yeah. That's it.
I need to decide. No, I have everything from him.
Okay.
I'm just gonna sit.
Excuse me, sir.